Hello and welcome, my friends. I hope you are doing well. I am making this video to show you first of all, the trade that I took today. Took this trade during lunch hour. Typically, I don't trade lunch hour, but this setup was too good to pass up. And then I'll show you a trade that I took last night during Asia session. So both of the trades I took were at times where I typically don't trade, but they both worked out really well. What I've noticed about this market recently is that our moves that are happening are during times that we don't usually expect the moves to be happening. That's how erratic this market has been. Super choppy when we're expecting momentum and expansion, and then expanding with momentum when we're not expecting that. So what we've had to do is kind of adjust the times that we trade and look for setups throughout the day in weird times. So without further ado, I am going to go through and break down exactly why I took the trades that I did, and ultimately making over 4K on the day combined between the two trades. So yeah, let's break it down. All right, guys. So there was a few trades at market open, like the opening range breakout that I called out and I didn't take. So I'll kind of go over that trade real quick. I called out the longs off of the orb breakout. So we had our 15 minutes, first 15-minute candle of the day. We kind of look over here. This is our first 15 minute. We got a close above on the 1 minute. We created a good fair value gap entry and everything. The reason I didn't jump into this trade was because my entry would have had to have been all the way up here, and my stop loss had to have been very, very, very low for me to really trust the trade. I think I was looking for an entry right around here. So it was looking about 150 tick stop, and my first TP was about 170 ticks. So to me, the risk reward didn't make sense on that trade. That's why I stayed out of it. Well, this was a really good setup. It's a classic opening range breakout mixed with my ICT concepts, right? Where we got a close above on the 1 minute. We had our bullish bias. We formed a 1 minute fair value gap right here. Price traded back into it. So it's a trade that I called out. A lot of you guys caught it. Some people stayed out with me. I didn't take this. And eventually it took out all of our buy side liquidity. So this is where we start to understand kind of the theme for the day. So because we had taken out all of our buy side liquidity, we didn't have any more levels left. This was our only buy side level up here, and we took that out on that breakout. Above that, we didn't have any more liquidity until previous day high, and that's why I didn't really expect price to continue to break through this hourly, because we had this huge hourly bearish for value gap. Remember, whenever we're looking at our trades, we are focused on the higher time frames. We understand that we are rejecting out of an hourly bearish for value gap. We don't have liquidity until 21,558, so a very long ways away. We're not expecting us to run through that hourly. So with that being said, now we kind of have more understanding of where the market wants to go. So I kind of walked away from the market right around here. I was so used to the past few weeks us not seeing good movement at market open and not seeing real setups that I kind of talked myself out of jumping into this trade, and also talked myself out of the original short up here. I also called out this short right back down after sweeping that liquidity, and I just didn't take either of those trades. And again, it was because I'm so used to this terrible price action the past few weeks that I kind of like talked myself out of jumping in. But I kind of reset, and I'm like, okay, I'm already up on the day for my Asia session trade, so I'm still going to look for another trade. So what I noticed was this move up right here. This is the really important move, and we're going to be looking at ES as well. So ES has a swing high, as does NQ. Right here, this is going to be the same high on ES and NQ. If we zoom into it, boom, right there. Okay, what happens? NQ, or ES comes up and sweeps that high. NQ fails. So now what do we have? We have bearish SMT divergence, right? A discrepancy, a divergence in price here. This is a bearish reversal indication. I'm never going to use SMT solely as my reversal indicator, but this is a good way to kind of look for the reversal. So that's not enough for me to jump in the shorts. Just because we're in the hourly, because we have SMT, I'm not just going to jump into the short. But what I noticed is we got some inversions over here. So the very first thing I looked at was right here, we got a 1 minute inversion. This could have been the most aggressive possible entry on this move down. If you were super aggressive on it, you could have taken that entry. What I wanted to wait for was more confirmation, because the past few weeks, we've seen the 1 minute iFVGs haven't been holding up super well lately. So I wanted to see at least a 2 minute iFVG. what I noticed right here was he had this 2-minute bullish for value gap. We inversed that. So now we have this 2-minute iFVG, and this is exactly when I targeted my entry. It was right as we broke through this 2 minutes. So I had my entry somewhere around here. I kept my stop loss above. I had an 81 tick stop. So let me see exactly where my entry was. So my stop loss was above this wick on the 2 minute up here. And it looks like, let's see, my entry was right around here. So about 21,295.75 was my entry. So pretty decent entry level there. 81 tick entry. So what I was targeting was our internal lows. After I sell those inversions, I wanted to see internal lows get swept. So we had some nice internal lows here. We had an internal low right here, sell side liquidity level. And then we had another really good internal low just below that. If we look at this level. So 2 really good sell side levels. Internal liquidity, 1 minute time frame. What I wanted to do, because what I've changed my strategy or my kind of risk management plan a little bit the past few weeks. I'm typically always looking for a 1 to 2 minimum. This week I've changed my idea and I'm looking for more 1-to-1s because we've seen so much chop and so many reversals when our trades look like they're going to play out. So on this trade, we started to stall a lot around here. So once we hit 81 ticks and I had a 1-to-1, I just snagged the first TP. And by the way, I got in 4 minis on this trade. So I snagged the first TP right here. 81 ticks. Okay, cool. Move my stop to break even. And the other reason I also like this short and I knew we were going to keep going was because we also inversed a 3-minute bullish for value gap or busy right there. So I had all the confirmation in the world for the shorts, but I still can't put 100% trust in this market that we're going to follow through. But eventually we did see us follow through. So my next TP level was down here at these lows. And once we started to stall at this swing low, and we also had some SMT divergence right around here, where NQ had come down and swept the low and ES failed to sweep that low, and we started to pump back. So I just took my TP right here. So my next TP, I took out another contract around 190 ticks. And then I decided to move my stop into profit after this, or not after this, but I waited for the next drop. So we dropped again. Now I have 1 runner left in my trade because I do expect us to come down at this point to the next liquidity level down here. This is originally where I had my full TP. It's exactly where we bounced from. About, let's see, how many ticks was it? Like almost 400 ticks, I think. Right here, about 390 ticks from our entry. So basically, we took out these lows. After this little move down, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to trail my stop into profit. And because I wanted to, just in case price wanted to pull back, like I said, I'm really managing my risk. So I decided to move it above a 5-minute order block up here. So we had this 5-minute order block. After we made that move down, I decided to trail my stop to right here. So now my stop is trailing. Stop loss is right here. And then we get another manipulation leg down. I just kind of started to trail my stop on that leg down as we kept on going. Right, so then I would trail it down after this manipulation right here. I trailed my stop above this high. And then after this little manipulation here, I trailed my stop to this high right here, which eventually got stopped out in profit. So ultimately, we caught this entire move down. My full TP level was perfect. I wanted to still let it run just in case we wanted to take this last sell side level right here. But it didn't want to run, so I just took my last stop in profit all the way down here. So ultimately catching over 300 ticks on this move. It was a really clean iFVG setup with SMT out of delivering from a higher time frame, 1 hour bearish fair value gap. So just a ton of conviction on that trade. And another thing about this trade is the reason I had more conviction is because we got such an aggressive move down with inversion. It gave me a lot of confluence and conviction that these shorts were going to continue to step in. So again, just an absolutely beautiful trade setup. Even though I didn't catch these moves and called them both out, I was still able to compose myself and come back and take a trade like this, which is all what really matters, right? When you miss out on a trade, even though you saw it in most people will get a ton of FOMO and start chasing. I don't do that, right? Sometimes I'll make mistakes. Sometimes I'll have FOMO. Sometimes I'll chase. We all make those mistakes, but for the most part, I'm just going to leave the market for a little bit. I'm going to come back and I'm going to look for the next A+ entry. That's what the next A+ entry was. And yeah, let me go show you my Asia session trade now. All right, so here is the trade that I took during Asia session. It was at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. And it was a really, really clean looking setup. Obviously, the market wanted to chop for a while. I'm on the 5-minute time frame. I wanted to hold this one for a long time because I really had conviction in the longs. As you can see, it eventually really broke, but I had to go because I was going to the zoo. So I had to kind of just get out of my trade, and I left one runner that eventually got stopped at break even. But this is a trade that if I wasn't on getting on the road, I would have held all the way up until we took out our buy side liquidity. But either way, it ended up being a really good trade. Made about 1,300 on this one. So let's just break down why I took it. All right, so I'm on the 4-hour time frame. Here's why I wanted to see longs today overall and during Asia. And it's because we had come down, and we can look at ES and NQ on this chart. Clear these drawings real quick. So we had come down and taken out all of our sell side liquidity on the 4-hour time frame. We swept all of this area down here, right? So we took out the bottom of the range. But what we didn't do was close below. We never closed below that level. So we held our bullish structure here. We traded into a 4-hour bullish fair value gap on that move. And this was all going into the end of the day yesterday. And what I also noticed is that we had SMT on ES. So we had this swing low down here. ES came down and swept that swing low. And NQ completely failed to sweep that same swing low. So now we had this higher time frame bullish SMT right here with a daily bullish fair value gap, a 4-hour bullish fair value gap, and an hourly bullish fair value gap. So now I'm looking for longs. I have a bullish bias going into Asia session. I know that I'm looking for longs. So this is when I have to go down to the lower time frames to start to kind of find my entry. So it was all the way over here. Obviously, yeah, our PA wasn't the best, but we had a really clean setup. So what we did, and I'm going to pull up the 5-minute time frame here on ES as well. Here's what we did. Right here, we got internal SMT on the 5-minute time frame. Again, I'm looking at SMT a lot here. NQ failed to sweep this low. Boom. We have external SMT on the higher time frame and internal SMT on the lower time frame. Because look what happened. ES swept that low. And we had a 5-minute bearish fair value gap right here. Boom. That we inversed. So I knew I was going to now target my entry off of this 5-minute iFVG because it looks very strong. Now we have our delivery from the higher time frame for value gaps. We have our SMT divergence on the 4-hour and now on the 5-minute time frame. We get inversion. So this is now when I'm looking for my entry yesterday. Let me go all the way back over here. Right, so the other thing we did is we also inversed a 1-minute fair value gap on that move to inverse the 5-minute. So we just set up a really good trade, but I was targeting my trade off of the 5-minute inverse. So I took my trade. I'm going to go back to the 5-minute actually, and because that's where I actually targeted my trade off of was the 5-minute time frame. So I took my trade off of this 5-minute candle or inverse fair value gap, and I wanted to target these internal highs above us. That was ultimately where I wanted to see price go. Keeping my stop below the wick of the 5-minute iFVG down here. And then obviously targeting this internal liquidity above, like I just said. So that's where I wanted to see price go. I wanted to see just really a quick move up. Nothing too crazy, but ultimately I wanted to see price move higher on the night. So I took my entry, and right around, I had to wait through this chop. I had to leave my charts for about 30 minutes because I just didn't want to watch the chop. I wanted to just let my trade play out because I had so much conviction in the longs. And I knew if I kept sitting around during this chop for 30 minutes, I might make a dumb decision and get out of my trade or, do something I don't want to do. So at this point, I come back to the charts, and I knew right here I was about to leave my house. So I said, once we break these internal highs, I'm just going to take a 1-to-1 here, a 1-to-1 TP, and I'm going to move my stop to break even. So that's what I did. Right when we broke these highs, I took a 1-to-1 TP, and then we made one more pump up here, and I took another TP around this area. I had my stop at break even. So now I had one runner, and I was just letting that runner go with my stop at break even. You can see that, and I was on the freeway while this was happening, so I couldn't even see what was going on to adjust my trade. But this one came back down. It stopped my runner out at break even. Eventually, it kept running. I know a lot of you guys that might be watching this took this exact trade and were able to catch that expansion move up. So ultimately, from the bottom to the top, it hit over 280 ticks. Really, really clean model there. Just a simple 5-minute iFVG. Delivery from the higher time frame. Liquidity sweep with SMT divergence. So a little bit of a Gooey model there. And just giving us the longs. And obviously, we eventually broke these internal highs too. But yeah, that was the Asia session trade. So with both of those trades combined, I made over $4,000 today. 2 for 2. Just a great day overall.